Trade Genius.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Trade Genius podcast. Philip here with Bob Kudla, and we're going to dive into some crypto today. So I got your request on yesterday's video, and we're going to dive into a couple things that I think are going to help drive the entire crypto market, as well as other risk-on assets. And then we'll get into the ones that you requested. We'll go through the charts. We'll look at the weekly, and then look at the daily, and kind of talk about where we think things are going to head up over the next couple of weeks into the midterms, which is usually a seasonally strong draw for these things. So without further ado, let's jump into the charts. And Bob, how have you been? How's your day going?
Oh, good. And the day has been absolutely spectacular. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, I'm looking forward to your thoughts on Bitcoin, and definitely agree with you on the seasonals.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I think that we've been talking about midterms, and I think we're finally starting to see that manifest. So basically what we have here is a chart of the dollar, and let me hide this stock market overlay real quick. This is basically a parabolic curve that we've been in, and this goes back to September of 2021, which coincides with I think like near the top of Bitcoin as well. So, Bitcoin sensitive to the dollar movements, obviously, but we're falling out of it. And I don't know if you guys caught it on the channel, but we did a short, and the short basically was saying that if we fall out of this channel, we'd look for this level here. Let me do this here real quick. 108.60. All right. So, and if we get this move, and this usually takes a few days to a week or more to play out typically. Unless, of course, you're the USD JPY, then you just do this move in like 1 hour. that pair has been very volatile today, but that's another episode. So I think this is going to help fuel the move that we're going to get to the upside. If we look at the Qs, and Bob, you can chime in on this too. The Qs have been giving us what looks to be an inverted head and shoulders. So there's your left shoulder, and there's your right shoulder. And then there's your head, and this is actually a 2-day chart. Let's move this to a 1-day chart. There you go. Okay, so and this is generally your neckline. So we could see like one of these moves up, right? And then we'll probably get into our Ranger sell zone will probably extend over like that. So would be a realistic target for this type of setup that we're getting here. So you have the dollar falling out of its parabolic curve. You have the Qs looking like a strong setup here. And the reason why I show the Qs is because I think the crypto market is probably the most tied to the Qs. If to show you guys what I mean, if we look at the Bitcoin chart, and let me turn back on the SPX, you'll notice that the SPX looks really volatile relative to how Bitcoin's been performing, right? So Bitcoin's basically been like a stable coin, right? And which is funny to say because Bitcoin's usually just one of those volatile assets that you could dream of trading. But look at it relative to what the S&P 500's been doing, and it's been much more calm. And so we're building a huge support base here off of 19K, which I think can give us another move up. And I think we're going to probably attack these prior highs here. So we could see a move up into the Ranger sell zone here, up into, I wouldn't be surprised if we got close to 23, taking out these highs here. This high here was 22,800. So I think that's what we have in the cards here. And this is obviously going to drag up all of these other crypto pairs that we're going to discuss. So I'll show you where the larger Ranger resistance zones are on these charts as we go through them. But I think it's all setting up to have a move like this across the board. So let's take a look now. We'll dive into chain link. Okay, nice basing formation here. I think that we've gotten I'm showing you guys our template here. This is our heat oscillator, and this is our range trader. And if you guys are interested in getting these indicators, I think our specials expire tomorrow night. So if you head over to the tradegenius.co, the link's below, you can check those out. You can get these indicators. This is going to rotate. This tells us it's probably going to cycle rotate up. And I think that plays into everything else we just talked about. So I think Chainlink on the high end here could probably push up to 850 or more. A lot of times these coins, when we do get a cyclical rotation, you're going to attack some of these prior highs. I think this prior high here is just begging to get tested. So, the just under $8 there, I think would probably be a decent target. I think it's a doable target, but a little higher up would definitely, I think this would be getting into a zone up here at 850 to 860 where you could find exhaustion. All right. So that's where Chainlink looks to be headed. If we get this major rotation. ADA is interesting because last video you guys asked about it, and I said watch this zone from this area back here where you had basically a couple of weeks of hesitation in here. I like to see those zones hold, and we pulled right back into that. So that's what we told you to watch for last week, and here we are. And I think it's setting up to hold in here and get a bounce. If you look at today's candle, we're starting to put in a little hammer here. And we got nice cyclical green lights going on here. So I think and then our longer setting cycle is also getting into that zone where it's going to turn. So I like this setup here. And again, I would target this area up here, this Ranger sell zone up at like 43 cents. And I think that makes sense too, because you have this breakdown. A lot of times when you get these breakdowns, a lot of times you'll see, especially if we get into like a cycle up on the daily and weekly, you'll come back and back test these levels. So this broke down from 42 cents basically. So that's where I would look for this rotation to go back up to on ADA. All right, Theta was another request, and Theta basically another daily hammer. I think you're going to see this theme across most of these tokens here because it all pretty much moves the same. Again, cycles turning green. Didn't dip too hard on the longer term cycle, but that's okay. I think as things rotate up, so will Theta. These highs over here kind of coincide with the Ranger's sell zone on the daily, and the daily sell zones, as you can see, are pretty powerful. Right up here, just major top into that. So we'd be eyeballing a move up to $1.20 to about $1.23 on that. Ripple getting a cycle buy here on the what I have, the heat oscillator I set at 8, ascending of 8, getting a buy here on that on the daily. That should see some follow through as well. And now this actually flipped the Ranger. So the Ranger is actually in a buy condition here. So the other thing, if the daily's in a buy condition, you can go to the weekly and take a look at where the weekly's at. And that would send Ripple all the way up to almost 90 cents if that got that rotation. I don't know if it has enough fuel in this market right now to do a move that extreme with it. So I think what you do is you eyeball, go back to the daily chart here. I think you have to eyeball some of these moves. If we look if we're going to get a move similar to what we saw in July, if we look at what happened in July, we had a, more or less a move up, kind of followed what Bitcoin did, and it got up into this previous area of resistance. So our previous area of resistance, you have to look at these swing lows down here and also that swing low. We're already into them, right? So that actually is positive for XRP. It kind of turns this area, I would put it to you this way. I think your stops, if you're going to get into this trade, your stops would be safe under this daily candle because that's a pretty good looking hammer there. And then you look for this area right here before the drop. I think your immediate target overhead is going to be 48 cents. Now, if you can clear this area, I would actually look for this swing high right here of 51 cents plus. I would look for that to get tested because a lot of times they'll come up and they'll test these highs, and then you'll get a move like this where it comes up, tests the high, comes back under, back tests it, and then we roll over. So that would complete like a cycle on it. So anyway, I think 51 to 52 cents is realistic on the upside on XRP. Moving on to Solana, again, another daily hammer forming here. And I think you just target this daily sell zone up here between 36 basically and 37.30 roughly on Solana. I got requests for LTC and also looking at the LTC BTC and LTC ETH pair. So we'll look at all of that. Again, another setup where cycles turning green here. Very tight, choppy range. LTC probably is the last coin to give us a move in this. If we do this cycle up into the midterms, Litecoin will probably lag. When you see Litecoin making its move to say the daily sell zone, which is currently up at 60 to about 60 to 85. when you see that move happen, that's probably going to be telling you that, okay, this cycle is probably near completion. It's just Litecoin's been the caboose on all of these cycle rotations. So just keep that in mind. Moving to LTC BTC, if we zoom out on the weekly on this, you've had this like forever down channel for Litecoin. Now, I don't think we're going up to the top of this channel anytime soon. But you can see where if you are going to accumulate Litecoin in terms of like LTC, BTC, it is down in this region, this lower end of the down channel. And I think we're putting in a pretty decent floor. Now, I think, Bob, you would agree that the bear market, probably has one more leg down once we get past the midterms?
Yeah, I think we'll cycle down lower low sometime in Q1 of 2023.
Yeah. So that's where I think a lot of the opportunities are going to come for the altcoin market. And people are going to feel like that's the last place you want to be buying, but that's where you want to be buying. And we'll cover that as things develop going into 2023 as well. But I think anything south, long-term going into the next halving, anything south of 0.0017 will end up paying you. It's just, you'd have to be patient if Litecoin's your asset that you're after, that you like long term. Just be patient with it, but it does consistently rotate up off of these basing levels. LTC ETH, this one, let's go back to a daily chart on this. So it's been butting its head on the daily sell zone. You can see these daily sell zones are very relevant. Let's see, where's our weekly at? Our weekly's overhead too. So in this rotation, I actually would think that LTC ETH could get back up into that sell zone. It definitely has the ability to do that. You might want to set sell limits up there because, as you can see, these moves happen pretty quickly. So just bear that in mind. But that would take you up to darn near 0.06 LTC ETH. Okay, so that's what I see that happening on this cycle rotation up. All right, Stellar XLM. Let's look at, again, another situation where I'd probably normally I would target the weekly sell zone. Stellar's at 11.5 cents basically, but you'll notice this range is really, 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 really tight in here. And so let's do a rectangle to kind of highlight that here. So, we have this zone of basically from 10 cents to almost 14 cents, right? I suspect we're going to rotate back up to that 14 cent. Well, actually, technically it's 13.8 cents. I think we're going to rotate back up to that. And then if we clear that, we're probably looking at back testing this area that was support that broke down. So we'll probably back test a little over 16 cents on that. And I think that for Stellar, that's probably a realistic upside target. I just don't think we're going to get up to this weekly Ranger sell area up here at 25 cents. I just don't think that's in the cards. So that's that for Stellar. Ethereum USD. So Ethereum, I'm going to talk about that for a minute here. Ethereum's obviously changed its tokenomics, right? Because it went from pretty inflationary to now we've seen that if the usage goes up on it, it actually becomes disinflationary, which is huge for Ethereum. So going into now, even though the tokenomics have gotten way more bullish and it's probably the equivalent of like 3 Bitcoin halvings, you're still going to succumb to the overall market pressures, right? So even though this should be a no-brainer buy and accumulation on Ethereum, I don't think we're in the clear until this entire market, including the S&P 500, is done with it, all the bearish things, okay? And then at that point, I think you have a very bullish case for Ethereum. So anywhere between now and halfway through 2023, if you can somehow get Ethereum under $1,000, that's probably going to pay you pretty well. And I think you can make the case for Ethereum going to 10 grand in the next cycle because of the amount of the inflation rate is going to be hugely reduced now. All right, and that's one of the leading cases for why you accumulate Bitcoin. Now, obviously, there's a lot more Ethereum in circulation, and its use cases is a lot different, and it still has to prove that it can scale in a big way as a distributed computing platform. All right, so those are all still speculative things. But that being said, it does do, out of all of the DeFi applications, running things on Ethereum dwarfs everything else, right? Any other blockchain or layer one chain. So that is why, it's holding value, and why I would continue to expect it to rise up on the next cycle and do very well. Unless things break and all that other stuff, but I don't see any reason to expect that at this point. So in regards to this, if we look back if we have a move similar to what we got back in July up into August, obviously we can have a huge move. So I actually think it could break the 1 day sell zone, which is up at 1610, and probably attack this prior high up here at near 1790. So figure, let's try to see if we can get a run up to about 1800 on Ethereum. Again, putting in a lower high. If we got really exuberant past the midterms, then we could crack $2,000. But I wouldn't expect too much more than that. Maybe get up to 2168, test this prior swing low, fill in this gap between the prior swing low and the swing high at 2030 or so. All right, so I could put a rectangle in there to make that a little more clear. So this zone here, if we get a really good push up, we could take that out, sweep that swing high, get that liquidity, and then this market takes a breather and probably rolls back over after the midterms. Atom USD, similar situation, nice support off the daily buy zone here. We're getting cycle signals up, as you can see here. That's bullish, and would expect to attack these previous highs up at 1722 if we get that strong move up into the midterms there. And then you guys wanted to see Bitcoin Cash. This is a very standard basing formation that I like to see, and it lulls you to sleep, and then all of a sudden you get a big rotation back up. So it's another case of where I think here's some cycle signals telling you to get long, and that previous high up at 160, about 165 would be the upside target on this cycle up. All right, I think that's very doable. Okay, so that's it for our list of altcoins that you guys wanted to cover. And I think you guys have an idea of what we're expecting up in basically everything risk on. So stocks, cryptos, see a push up into the midterms. Where that would be invalidated for us would be if the S&P 500 broke back down. Today we held this lower high, or I'm sorry, higher low. And I think, Bob, you're in agreement with that. That's pretty vital now that we hold that. So as long as that holds, I think we're all systems go for a push up. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the lows are in for the year, and I don't think we're going to rotate down again until the first quarter of next year. Ironically, on good news from the Fed.
Yeah. So if you guys weren't privy, basically the Wall Street Journal ran an article, and the market just really attached to it that it was a dovish pivot. And the reality was they've been saying those things, but today it mattered. And that's all that really matters. We trade price. Okay. But yeah, I mean, we know 75 basis points coming, and we know 50 basis points is coming. And the big question mark is, do they just pause after that? We don't know. I think they've been saying it's data dependent, and I think that's probably right. But the market's forward looking. So it's looking towards beyond that where they're going to ease. So unless we get really hot inflation prints going forward, the market's going to forward look and price in this potential easing that's going to go on, and then we'll have to see what happens after the midterms. So, all right, Bob. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Bitcoin Friday, and we will see you guys tomorrow's podcast. What are we talking about tomorrow, Bob?
Yeah, so it's going to be Sector Saturday, and we're going to discuss the high dividend stocks in the energy market that don't depend on necessarily the price of the energy products that underlie it. So these are stocks, I own most of these. They're great companies, low volatility, high dividend payments, and a great future. So be sure to tune in on that, and I think you'll pick up some really good trade ideas that probably aren't apparent to you.
Awesome. All right, Bob, thanks so much. And thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we ask that you can hit like and subscribe, and that really helps out our channel. And we will see you on tomorrow's podcast. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching.